Hello, this is a tour of the retired ocean liner Cambria of the Commodore Yacht Club that now owns it. If you will, I'm going to follow a narrative or lore that I've made up about this ship and about the companies that it comes from, because these ships were not real. They were created over the years out of my own imagination, utilizing certain elements of real ocean liners and other ships to other kinds of ships to make what you see here, for example. So this was built in 1999 and was constructed as what I call a cabin liner. It is an ocean liner ship that is filled with mostly cabins and therefore just living conditions and maybe a couple of public rooms, and that's all. It's very minimal in public rooms. It is more ferry than cruise ship or passenger ship. So heavy emphasis on getting as many people on board as possible for the routes being considered. So this ship was introduced for the Royal Line and was in service for several years, kind of modeled actually off of the Royal Mail lines out of Britain, and was called the Andes, as in the Andes Mountains. And eventually that ship was transferred within the same group to a version of the Royal Viking line that I created called Royal Viking Cruises, and it became the Royal Viking Sun. The Royal Viking Sun then continued until the entire organization of Royal or Royal Viking was taken over by the Layland Group, a much older, more venerable company within the collection, and it was renamed Astoria. And the Astoria sailed for a number of years more until it was eventually passed off as a kind of emergency filler of a situation to Zodiac Cruises of the A group, and it was renamed Scorpio Star. At this point, the ship had been rebuilt and repainted a number of times. It used to be white all over with a similar smokestack or funnel there, and it had blue and purple lines on it when it passed off to Royal Viking, losing its yellow funnel at the time. And then it became black and white with the gold line running along the middle of it. And when it passed on to Zodiac Cruises, it became all blue with a purple line along the main deck. That's all been changed. And in fact, a lot of the ship was redone over the years, especially along the top. That's a new bridge, that's a new funnel these days. It's all restored actually from before. This skylight though is an actual glass skylight, but it's protected in a new housing that I had to construct for it, along with a top plastic bit to protect it. The bow was very heavily crushed in over the years due to moisture out back, and it was actually relatively early on in the lifetime of this piece that happened, and I kind of just, fixed it, but not really fixed it. And it's only in the last month or so that the front has undergone a complete reconstruction, and hopefully you can't tell, but it was a huge amount of work to get that thing restored and to get the piece back on an even keel. The back lounge has been redone a couple of times. This is a more modern reconstruction of the same old space, and there's artwork in here. I'll tell you the name of the guest artist in a moment, but that's some of what she has done. Let me grab that information. Rebecca Aloisio, if I'm saying that right. But she's a guest artist on board the ship. And that's the redone interiors. This room is not completely original to the ship when I first built it, but it was added on. And the tables and the bar that are located within are from the Italian grace liner Augustus. And Italian Grace Lines has since become Grace Cruises and is still Italian oriented, but it's got a lot more going for it now than it did back then. Anyways, her furniture was transferred over to here when some of the furniture that came with this ship fell apart. Here we have the interior sort of gallery space. This is wholly original to the first ship and has been restored and touched up to its original glory. And it's not meant to be considered sophisticated now, but back then it was certainly sophisticated. You got to come from somewhere, and as an artist, I really believe that that you need to preserve and treasure some of the things that you first created, and not make fun of them or say, oh, that was back when I was a kid. No, that's what makes you you, and this is what made me me. And it was a very special time when this was first built. It was contemporaneous with the Leviathan and other ships in the collection I've talked about over the years. And so for that reason, it was considered a stout and good example to preserve for the future. So that is the basic history of the Andes, now the Cambria. So called because I think it's just a nice name, and dedicated to the town of Cambria, the first municipality of what was then the new Niagara County over 200 years ago. This here is a cargo crane, cargo hatch. The dedication on the front there, I've always been influenced by different people over the years, and many of my ships get dedicated to various people and organizations. And there we go. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for your support. And thank you for listening to this story.